Today we'll discuss a horrible case that happened in Sweden, and the story is about a young girl named Wilma Andersson. She was 17 years old. Her mother Linda describes her daughter as beautiful, full of life and dreaming about the future. She was very sociable and had many friends with whom she often spent her free time. Wilma also loved communication in social networks and occasionally posted her photos on Facebook. It should be noted that the girl liked to take pictures. She enjoyed posing and choosing a more flattering angle. She used any opportunity to capture herself and allowed others to do so. She was really creative and strong-willed person. When Wilma was 15 years old, she met a guy named Tishka Ahmed Shabas, who was 5 years older than her. But this did not stop them, because the age of consent for sexual relations in Sweden and throughout Europe varies from 15 to 18 years. Tishka was from Iraq, but at the age of 8 he moved with his father to live permanently in Sweden. He lived together with his father and stepmother in Develi, studied at school where, according to his friends, they bullied Tishka and humiliated him. But with age he became bolder and more resilient against bullies. His stubborn character did not let him break down, and by the end of school he was a guy who never backed down before anything. And when Tishka finished school, he got a job in the childcare sector, and in 2014 he received Swedish citizenship. As for Wilma, she lived with her sister Emily, her mother Linda and father Marcus divorced. It was rumored that there were problems in the family that led to the fact that Wilma could not live with her father, and her mother actually did not allow the girl to stay with her. However, in her daughter's life, she took an active part. Learning that her daughter was dating a 20-year-old man, Linda was very unhappy, but at the same time, she trusted her daughter and accepted her choice when in 2018, Wilma and Tishka began living together, renting a house in Develi. Everything started perfectly for the young lovers, but perfection, which we hear so often, did not last long. Soon Tishka began to control Wilma, and Linda remembers how much her daughter's behavior changed during the 2 years she lived with her boyfriend. At the same time, Wilma often shared in secret with her sister Emily about her relationship with her boyfriend. On November 14, 2019, Wilma talked to her sister again on the phone and admitted that she was not satisfied with her relationship with her boyfriend and wanted to end it, so she came to his apartment to pick up her things and break up. Wilma complained that she was tired of being told what to do all the time, being told what to wear, where to go, what makeup to wear, who to talk to, and who not to talk to. It turned out that Tishka was very controlling and behaved insultingly towards Wilma. At the same time, the man returned home from work, and Wilma told her sister that she had to go and finished the conversation. Later, Emily tried to call her sister, but she didn't pick up the phone. On November 15th, Wilma was scheduled to see a dentist, but she never showed up. On November 17th, the parents of the girl came to the apartment where their daughter and Tishka lived. They had to knock on the door for some time until the man finally opened the door. Linda asked if Wilma was home and if not, where she went. At the same time, the woman noticed the condition of Tishka. He looked like he was slightly high, either excited or worried, and was not in the mood for a conversation, but the parents were not going to leave without getting answers to their questions. When they began persistently asking where their daughter was, Tishka reluctantly replied that the relationship he had with Wilma had ended and she just left. He also said that he did not know where she went and actually did not intend to communicate with her and them in the near future. After some time, the parents entered the apartment, although they did not advance further than the hallway, and the conversation continued. Tishka explains to the Wilma's parents that he returned home that evening around 5:30 p.m. He came from work, entered the door, and as soon as he crossed the threshold, they had a big fight with Wilma, which led to her announcing that she was breaking off their relationship and leaving him. Wilma's parents immediately became concerned, but decided that Tishka's relationship with their daughter would continue, attributing everything to a small quarrel, understanding that this was not the first and probably not the last quarrel, as usually happens among young people. Emily still created a Facebook post asking, "Has anyone seen her sister?" She explained that Wilma had disappeared and hadn't been in touch since Thursday, and she and her parents were becoming increasingly worried. Emily wondered, has anyone contacted Wilma during this time by phone or through social media? Emily also described her sister's appearance, stating that her height was 168 cm. She had dark hair with light streaks, and it was unknown what she was wearing at the time of her disappearance. The sister noted that such behavior was completely unlike Wilma, as she always maintained constant contact with her and her family. Emily appealed to everyone who wanted to listen to her, saying that if someone had any information, they could contact her or the police. At the same time, Wilma's relatives filed a report with the police, and the authorities began working to determine who was the last person to see the missing girl or talk to her on the phone. Linda confirmed that they hadn't spoken to Wilma since November 14th, and she hadn't answered their calls either. The police formed a search group. Friends and relatives joined the search. The police dogs were also involved. The authorities also used helicopters. The police interrogated Tishka as he was in a relationship with Wilma and might have known about his girlfriend's plans and where she could have gone, but he insisted that he knew nothing and had heard nothing about his girlfriend. On Sunday, November 17th, 3 days had passed since the start of the search, and Wilma had still not made contact with anyone. Usually she was active in social media, but her pages were now inactive. It is believed that 5,000 people have already joined the search to help find Wilma, but to no avail. The police decided to return to Tishka and tried talking to him again. The man insisted that he still hadn't seen the girl and hadn't heard anything about her and didn't know where she was. He tried to say that when she left him, she went to another man, but there was no evidence of this, as none of their friends or relatives had heard about this supposed person. At the same time, Wilma's family informed the police that their daughter's life had taken a turn for the worse since she met her boyfriend Tishka Ahmed Shabbos. She was no longer like the former girl who was the life of the party, lively and sociable. Linda told how Tishka constantly controlled Wilma, wanting to know where and with whom she was. Emily also admitted what she secretly whispered to her sister. It turned out that Wilma told how Tishka had behaved very cruelly towards her and the last months of their relationship, how he installed GPS devices on the girl's phone to be able to track her at any time of the day or night. And this despite the fact that Wilma loved her boyfriend and tried to please him in everything, trying to do everything the way he told her. In several text messages published in the press, you can see how much he controlled Wilma. One of the messages received during the previous quarrel was presented to the press. Wilma wrote to her boyfriend, "Contact me when you decide that you can trust me." In response, she received a message, "Contact me when you learn your place." Based on the available facts, the police decided to investigate Tishka's last movements. The man insisted that he had not left the house since returning from work around 5 p.m. that day, but the police still tracked his steps using GPS, starting from the 14th, the day when Wilma last spoke to Emily on the phone. So at first, the man was spotted on surveillance cameras at a supermarket on November 14th around 2:30 p.m. He returned home after 5 p.m. Neighbors heard a very loud and aggressive argument between Wilma and Tishka. This continued for some time, and although the neighbors were used to the fact that this couple often argued and tried not to pay attention, this argument was louder and longer than usual. One neighbor became so concerned that she decided to walk around the house and knock on the door to check if everything was okay. But when she approached the apartment door, everything stopped. There was no one arguing inside anymore, and suddenly there was silence, which made the neighbor feel a bit uncomfortable. This all happened around 6 p.m. When the police investigated Tishka's last movement, they decided to check his place of work, as well as his company car, from which he called while driving home to his client. The authorities went to his workplace and requested his company car for forensic examination. The GPS navigator in the car showed that he drove for work from Thursday the 14th to Monday, visiting clients at home and then visiting them during the working day. At the same time, the man often stopped by his home in between calls and visits to clients throughout his working day. The police also found out that on the day of the quarrel, Tishka left his apartment around 6:30 p.m. A motorcyclist saw him passing by on the highway and described him as a man dressed in all black and aimlessly walking along the road. That evening, he was picked up by the police and taken home. They asked him, "Why are you walking on the highway?" To which Tishka explained that he intended to catch a train, but then decided to walk home instead. The police took note of this, but in fact they did not write an official report stating that this ever happened, as the police had no reason to accuse this man of anything. In the end, Tishka Ahmed was arrested on November 19, 2019, when the police raided his home. During a thorough search, investigators discovered Wilma's bag and coat, which were still hanging on the hook in the apartment. Later, Linda stated that her daughter would never leave without her bag, and it was also problematic for her to leave the house without a coat in cold weather. These discoveries aroused suspicion about the truthfulness of Tishka's words regarding the fact that Wilma left the apartment on her own, taking her belongings with her. Moreover, the investigators noticed deep scratches on the man's forearms, although the mere presence of the scratches did not necessarily mean anything. Forensic officers accordingly began working with luminol in the apartment, and they found bloodstains all over the wall and on a large area on the floor. As they moved from room to room treating the surfaces with luminol, they managed to find bloodstains or blood splatter in each room, as well as traces of blood on the floor. It seemed that something heavy had been dragged from the living room to the bedroom, leaving a bloody trail. When they started examining the bed in the bedroom for blood, it also lit up from the luminol, showing the outline of a torso on the bed. Forensic officers also found remnants of muscle tissue, finding them on the kitchen knife and on the wall in the living room. Judging by the amount of blood present in the apartment, it would have been almost impossible to stand after such injuries. Following these findings, the police searched the apartment more thoroughly and found in the garbage bags bedding that belonged to Tishka, and it was completely stained with blood. Further, the detectives decided to visit the man at the police station and tell him what they had found in his apartment. They told him about the large number of things in his home that had blood on them, and whoever cleaned up there undoubtedly did a good job, not wanting to be found. To this, Tishka replied that it was implausible and simply impossible. He said that if there had been a large amount of blood on his property, he would have known because he lives there. At the same time, the search of the young woman continued with increasing intensity every day, as the number of people willing to help find Wilma grew. During these searches, several items were found that were presumably belonged to the missing girl, and then the apartment where Wilma disappeared was recognized as the crime scene, since no one had reported any contact with Wilma. On November 28, 2 weeks after Wilma Anderson was last seen or heard from, a large dog was brought in to assist at the crime scene. The dog was specially trained to find corpses. When it entered the bedroom, it immediately became wary, which indicated that there was a deceased person or human remains somewhere nearby. The apartment had a distinctive smell, despite the fact that the police had already inspected the apartment. The dog handler with the dog continued to search the bedroom, where the dog identified one place. The officer approached the closet, inside of which was a small travel suitcase. The case had been there all this time, like many other items in the bedroom, and the officers thought these things had been checked, but still took the case out of the closet and opened it. Inside, a large object was found wrapped in foil, wrapped in tape, and there were many blood stains on all of this and inside the case itself. The found case was sent to the forensic laboratory for examination. During the examination, it was found that Wilma had been decapitated, and her severed head, wrapped in paper and foil, wrapped in tape, was stored in this case. On the foil and tape, officers found fingerprints that belonged to Tishka. Experts, digging through the garbage bags with the bloody bedding, found scarps of foil and tape with fingerprints and blood that matched those that were in the case and on what Wilma's head was wrapped in. The pathologist claims that although he cannot name the cause of Wilma's death, the woman had head and eye injuries from a blunt object, and other injuries in the head area were caused by decapitation. Wilma's family was informed of what happened to their daughter, and her mother, Linda, joined the search party. The volunteers were no longer looking for a missing person, they were now looking for the rest of the girl's body. The deceased's family had to go through the horrific details of what happened to her, and judging by the evidence in the apartment, it is believed that this is what happened. Wilma's murder happened in the living room when she was either sitting on the floor or lying down, and she was hit very hard on the head. Also, there was no official cause of death, but police believe that Wilma died in that living room as muscle tissue particles were found on the wall. Then her body was dragged from the living room into the hallway, then into the bathroom. It is unknown whether the head was separated from the body in the bathroom, but further traces indicate that Wilma was dragged through the hall into the bedroom, where she was placed on the bed. Despite all the efforts of the police and the volunteers involved, Wilma's body was never found. Throughout the trial, Tishka showed no emotion or remorse. Wilma's family pleaded with him to tell them where he hid her body. The man guilty of their daughter's death looked coldly and indifferently at the tears and pleas of his relatives and then pointed his finger upward. A court-appointed psychiatrist conducted a mental health assessment of Tishka, and the report stated that the man was completely sane of the time of the crime. On July 27, 2020, the trial took place, and Tishka Ahmed appeared before the judge to hear the verdict. The judge delivered the verdict finding Tishka guilty of the murder of Wilma Anderson. He also found guilty of desecrating the body by mutilation. As a result, Tishka was sentenced to life imprisonment and would be eligible for parole after 10 years of serving his sentence. He always maintained his innocence and later appealed his sentence in the Court of Appeals. The review of the case took some time, and ultimately the previous verdict of the district court, which had sentenced Wilma's ex-boyfriend to life imprisonment for murder, was overturned. The Court of Appeals reduced his sentence to 18 years. The court justified this reduction by the fact that the exact cause of Wilma Anderson's death or the development of events couldn't be ascertained or proven. Our video has come to an end. If you want to see more interesting content, subscribe to our channel and press the bell to not miss the new release.